What's the stupidest reason you got in trouble in school? In 7th grade English class. A classmate looked pretty sad, so I asked her how she was doing. No malicious intent. Just wondering what was making her so upset, but she started sobbing. I apologized and moved on. Later that day, I get pulled from a different class by a math teacher that I've never met before, who yelled at me in the hallway making snide remarks about my parents and their parenting capacity. She made me sit in front of the principal's office to wait for the principal to talk to me. For 4 hours. Long after the school day has ended. When the principal finally did show up, he had no idea why I was sitting there. Middle school me was too shy to make a fuss about it, but in hindsight I should have made a complaint against her. To this day, the girl that I supposedly bullied has no idea why the math teacher flipped out at me for saying my school picture sucked. I had no idea. Sucked was considered a bad word until I was put in detention for it. For using my asthma medication in class. I was told to keep my inhaler in the office. And to use it in there only. I was told it was distracting. Know what else is distracting? The sounds of someone gasping for air and having to be removed from class. Someone made a paper airplane out of scrap paper that had been binned. My name was written on the sheet they used. I got sent out the room and handed a punishment exercise. Grad school. As in, full-grown adult. One of my patients was a chill guy. We had one of those relaxed relationships. He would fist bump me after treatment was completed. The Dean of Academic Affairs did not like that. Got a 45-minute lecture on doctor-patient relationship, and how dare I violate that trust with a fist bump. Someone once poked a wasp nest in the school forest, and the whole swarm came out upon the school. The entire school sat detention for an hour. Understandable if you don't know who did it. But that's not the problem. We were sitting detention because the principal's son got stung. As it eventually turned out, it was actually his fault the swarm came down on us. I have cursed his name since the day I found out. Chasing someone with a paperclip and saying I am a vampire was elementary. For not looking at the teacher during lesson. I wasn't fidgeting. Just sitting at my desk. Staring into space. We had a payment system in 3rd grade where you'd get dollars for good behavior. Finishing homework. Cleaning up after lunch. And lose them for bad behavior. At the end of each quarter we'd get to use the dollars to buy shit at the book fair. Every kid wanted to stock up. Now each task would get you between $1 to $2. Each day you could only get like 3 max. She charged me $20. It was literally heartbreaking and took me a full month to recover. Turns out I had focal epilepsy and was having episodes in class. Got treated like a shitty kid for it all through high school. Edit. For those of you asking. 1. Everyone's epilepsy is unique to them. Mine is caused by a cavernous hemangioma on my right frontal lobe. The location of the mass makes it hard to pinpoint exactly how my seizures manifest because we don't know as much about the frontal lobe as we do the rest of the brain. If you're curious about specifics, I'd be happy to share my experiences, but again, number 2 epileptics are completely alike, so I can only speak for me. In 11th grade, one had gotten pink eye in both eyes. I'd never had it before. Just thought I was having a reaction to my eyeliner or whatever. I was in 2nd period. Cooking 101. My teacher kept looking at me funny the entire class. Eventually she asked to talk to me in the hallway. She told me that I needed to go to the nurse's office because I was stoned, and she could tell by how fascinated I was with the cooking we were doing. I was so confused and kept trying to tell her I was having some sort of allergic reaction, but she wasn't having it and yelled at me. Told me to grab my things and go now. Pretty much berated me while the whole class could hear and had me so frustrated, embarrassed I was in tears. Walked into the classroom. Everyone was staring at me in silence. Grabbed my stuff and went to the nurse. One look at me and she confirmed the pink eye. Got to go home and stay home for a few days. I remember my teacher tried to apologize for the incident. Class was super awkward after that. For hugging a crying classmate in the hall. And that one time I typed the word boobies on the calculator in math class. In 1993, the Flaming Lips song, She Don't Use Jelly, came out. I was in 3rd grade and I really liked that song. And started signing it with my friends during a double-handed jump roping session. She don't use Geely or any of Theezy. She uses VAAASSS's C-line. Boom. Written up. 3-day suspension for saying sexually suggestive things. I had no idea that was meant sexually. Worse even. No one would explain why that song was sexually suggestive. It was very confusing. I checked out a book on African tribes from the library in the 4th grade. I told the teacher about how the book had topless women in it thinking I was helping. She confiscated the book and had me suspended from school. I got in trouble for cheating. On one of my math exams, the teacher found a piece of paper in my pencil case. I got sent to the principal's office. When the principal asked me about what I wanted to say in my defense, I simply told him to take a look at the note. It turned out to be a shopping list. I was allowed to retake the exam the following week. I was drinking tea and my teacher yelled at me to stay home if I'm sick. Which I wasn't. I tripped on a loose tile and bumped into a teacher, causing her to spill her coffee on herself. I apologized and showed her the tile. She went on for months about how I did it on purpose, even got the principal and my folks involved. For the rest of the year she told me I couldn't come back to her class unless I apologized for doing it on purpose. Never went back to her class, though I initially apologized for the incident. I never once apologized for doing it on purpose. Fuck you, Ms. Helm. Back in high school, had a gym teacher that wished to be any teacher other than gym teacher. Come the driver's ed course. There's some bullshit 3-page pamphlet she tells us to read through and summarize. I do just that. She decides my summary of a short-ass pamphlet is too close to something she found online. So she makes a big huff about it and I literally have to march over to my English teacher with the summaries, have her evaluate them, and sign off on a form that no, she didn't classify my summary of a bullshit short pamphlet being somewhat similar to any other summary of a bullshit short pamphlet classified as plagiarism or was any cause to pursue further action. Correcting a teacher's spelling of congratulations. It was a substitute, and it was English literature. I apparently sighed loudly when a who knew she wasn't very popular walked in the room. I was talking to a friend the opposite side of my table. I once got in trouble for reading Stephen King. They were like, "You're reading dark books, it's the reason your behavior is bad." I yawned. That earned me 30 minutes of, "You never listened to the lesson properly." 4. Fighting. The school asshole sucker punched me and I didn't retaliate. It was even caught on tape. The zero tolerance policy is one of the stupidest things ever. I threw a closed pen to my friend who was like 3 feet away from me. And the teacher freaked out. He made a big deal out of it in front of the whole class for a solid 5 minutes. And then emailed my parents. Luckily my mom was able to see my side of things and she said, "Doesn't that teacher have better thing to do than email me about my child throwing pens?" We still laugh about it from time to time. First, I did many things to get in trouble legitimately. I went undiagnosed with ADHD inattentive type for a long time, because I would laser focus on school work and get done quickly, then get bored and disrupt everyone else. The secretaries in my elementary school office knew me on sight when I went back to visit in high school. But there were a couple times that were questionable. Clapping in 4th grade, one learned you can clap louder by having the fingers on one hand go into the palm of the other. I was part of a mini concert for our extremely talented strings students. Aw yeah. Hot cross buns, and I was kicked out and sent to the office because I clapped along with everyone else. But a teacher felt I was being disruptive, abusing my newfound power. It was decades ago, so I really can't say if I was being a jerk or not. Sneezing, I sneezed several times. And like a duck quacking. I got it from my grandfather who did the same. If those things are hereditary, I can try to hold it in. But then it looks like I'm having a seizure. Our middle school science teacher immediately tried to give me ISS when I sneezed for the first time. And it took the whole class vouching for me before she relented. After that, people would just pause for me to finish. And I'd apologize. I got ISS. In school suspension. Basically detention during school hours. For being in a food fight even though I wasn't. They said I was a part of it because I dropped some crumbs from my cupcake onto the floor. The stupidest reason someone tried to get me in trouble was for doing the assignment. There was a special needs kid in my programming class. And he had an assistant. She thought I was goofing off on the internet and asked me to stop. I told her I was just working on the project. She didn't believe me, so she went to the teacher, who recognized that I was indeed working on the project. So nothing came of it. The stupidest reason someone succeeded in getting me in trouble was when we had this sub. He insisted on reading the day's instructions very slowly. It was a work day and that was written on the board. But he took a half hour to describe exactly what the different projects we were working on were. The problem was that we all knew what we were supposed to do. So we got started. He got pissed that we weren't listening to him. So he yelled at us and started over with his speech. Eventually he got so pissed that he ate up another half-hour ranting about how he's an industry big shot and all the different reasons why he'd fire us if he could. Anyway, I had him as a substitute a couple other times and he was much better tempered. So I assumed that was a fluke. One time I had to spend an entire day without shoes because I wore black safety boots instead of black shoes to school. Dude sucker punched me in gym class. I never even got a chance to defend myself or fight back before the teacher stepped in. I got suspended for fighting.